Hello?
Hi, Dave, it's Ian.
Hang on. Let me adjust my camera.
Okay, no problem. Just send the link out as well. I record this for audio, but I record it sort of my camera of it on YouTube as well. So I'll send the link.
Okay. You might find that there's a weird little spot sort of around about here on my camera feed, and that's actually because I've got a damaged camera.
So it's not on your head then. Okay. Right. So I hear myself a bit there.
Oh, hang on. Let me just turn you down a bit. Is that okay?
Right. How's that? Yeah, that's much better.
Okay.
So our regular co-hosts are running a bit late, so we'll start and they can jump in later, or we'll just be us. So it's a good timing. So I've got a couple of questions, but basically, we'll just talk about Raspberry Pi, new Raspberry Pi 2, and sort of a bit behind the background of what it can do, what you can do with it, and then we can touch on the Internet of Things version of Windows 10. I know it's not desktop and stuff, but I'll ask you that question anyway.
Okay. Okay, right. I'm fine.
I'll just send this link out.
So have you got Richard there with you, have you?
He should be in the chat room. I'm just going to check.
There's a chat room, isn't there?
Yeah, on the site. I'll send it. It's live.thedigital-lifestyle.com, and that'll give you. There's a little chat room.
Okay. Yep. Okay. And group.
Is there anything we should avoid before I send the?
Anything you should avoid?
Yeah, any topics that aren't worth talking about or should be avoided?
Not that I can think of.
Right.
Yeah.
It's good enough.
Just trying to find where this room is. Where do I go?
So if you go live.thedigital-lifestyle.com or just thedigital-lifestyle.com and you've got there's a link in the toolbar that says live, and that gives you the chat window and the video stream.
Okay.
It takes a while to load sometimes, the little chat bit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, all right. Yeah, got it. Okay.
Right.
So I'll say who I am.
I'll just get my notes. I don't think there's anybody in the chat room at the moment anyway.
Okay. Right.
Right, so I'll start the recorder off.
Okay.
So Dave Hans, welcome to the Digital Lifestyle Show.
Thank you.
And thanks to Rich for setting up the contact with you again as well. So we were talking Raspberry Pi 2 on the show, and Rich said, I've got a good contact. I know someone that you should speak to. So it's great to get you on the show. And we've been a big fan of Raspberry Pi. I've been using, I have the original one, and we've been playing with it for various uses over the years. But there's the Raspberry Pi 2 is just recently announced, so I thought it would be a good time to get you on the show. So what's your role at the Raspberry Pi Foundation?
So my official job title is Educational Resource Engineer. So what I actually do is I create a lot of the free educational material that we give away to schools for free. And if you go, you can see it's all up online. If you go to raspberrypi.org, in the toolbar at the top, you'll see on the right-hand side, there's a button that says Resources. You click in there, and you'll find basically lesson plans and different things that you can do with the Raspberry Pi, and a huge step-by-step sort of procedure to go through to build it. And all the resources are categorized into 3 subcategories called Teach, Learn, and Make. And there's a couple of other people on my team who also write these, like Carrie Ann Philbin, who's got the Geek Girl Diaries YouTube channel, and also Ben Nuttall, who runs the Pi Weekly sort of like email list. And the team that we're on, we put these together, so some of them are quite cool. They're like you could build like a fart detector or something like that. Raspberry Pi, something that kids would
get kids in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, that's the original thing that aside from being sort of an enthusiast and wanting to build things here, the one thing that we really liked about the Raspberry Pi right from day one was the fact it's a way of getting kids into something that's low cost, exciting, and kind of hands-on, so you actually get to know how these things work rather than like a sealed box, like an Xbox or something. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, that's it's the whole Raspberry Pi thing originated from our co-founder, Eben Upton. Basically, he was in charge of the Cambridge University undergraduate admissions during the last decade, and he saw, whilst he was there, a steady drop-off of number of people coming to study computer science at Cambridge University, and they were looking around for a reason why this might be happening. And part of the theory, and it's still only a theory, is that it was appliance computing that was causing it. When I say that, I mean things like tablet computers, games consoles, appliance devices, basically. And if you contrast, the kids all in that time were growing up with that kind of device in their home, and maybe a single shared Windows PC that's like a precious family resource. So if the kid's on there mucking about, the parents are like, "What are you doing on there? Don't mess up my files. All my pictures and movies are saved on there." And if you contrast that with the 80s and 90s when we were growing up, we all had things like Spectrum ZX81s, Amstrad CPCs, Ataris, Amigas and stuff, where we would just like cut our teeth and muck about in our bedrooms and hack. And that kind of went away with the advent of appliance computing. And the Raspberry Pi is a real strong attempt to try and bring that back.
Yeah, it's been able to sort of get in under the hood and see it for what it can do, and you can play with it and try something. If it doesn't work, try again. It was like you said, back to the Spectrum days, and I used to spend hours, just tinkering around with things, and maybe you're exhausted playing your 4 games or whatever, so then you would type in code from a magazine, and it didn't work, so you try and fix it, and then you learn how to program, and that's how I got into programming. So it's bringing that back. I think it's great.
Thanks.
Yeah, and then of course the other element of it is the low cost as well, and that you've really been able to get this out into schools.
Yeah, I mean the low cost of it was actually pretty phenomenal that they were able to achieve that back in 2012. And the idea was that we wanted it to be about the same kind of price as a textbook, and we've since found out that textbooks cost a lot more than a Raspberry Pi nowadays. But we kind of thought that about £30 was roughly what you'd expect to buy. If we as a charity want to go out and expect these kids to be buying these things, or we wanted to try and get the price point down so that, for example, a teacher could equip a whole class with them for under £1,000, for example, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose the other thing as well is the amazing community and ecosystem that's sprung up around it now.
Yeah, that kind of all happened organically. We didn't really do much in the early stages, and I think a lot of people realise that it's a charity, because Raspberry Pi is in fact actually 2 companies. So we've got the Raspberry Pi Foundation, which is my employer, and that's a charity. That's a registered charity, and if you go onto our website, you can get our charity details and our mission and all that kind of stuff. And we wholly own a subsidiary company called Raspberry Pi Trading. And what they do is they design all the actual circuitry and build the boards and actually get them all EMC tested and qualified. And then they hand that, all the Gerber files, over to Sony, who manufacture the Raspberry Pi. And then we get a revenue stream from licensing that manufacturer to Sony. And Sony have a factory in the south of Wales, which is churning out about 20,000 Pi 2s a day. So that's how it works. And then obviously the trading companies like the cash cow, and then they hand over 100% of their profits, to the foundation, and then we spend it all sort of thing on educational material and driving the educational goals.
And that's the other thing you should say as well, that's part of the success story, is that they're all made here in the UK now.
Yes, they are. The first million or so were made in China. And then it was kind of fortuitous, actually, because Sony's plant in South Wales, they have a team which are constantly going around scanning the marketplace, looking for ways to make money. And they approached Eben and said to him, we think we can make it here cheaper than you're getting it made in China currently. And everyone was like, okay, let's see what you can do. And then, yeah, they were actually able to make it in South Wales cheaper, and we think more efficiently than it was being made in China, because they have a very, very good like factory procedures there. They have a very stringent testing arrangement as well. So they've built all these bespoke machines which test the pies as they're coming off the production line. They go through all these little machines which plug things into them and test them and make sure everything's okay. And it will actually computationally detect faulty ones and reject them and stuff. So and we've never had that kind of really high quality manufacturing coming from China. So we're really glad that it's happening in the UK.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a great success story for the UK, because didn't I see today, is it like 5 million sold, something like that?
Yeah, that was on Twitter earlier today. That was yeah. So yes, we put that out on Twitter because we get the numbers coming in from so once the pies are manufactured by Sony, they get distributed via Premier Farnell and RS Components. They're two of the biggest electronics distribution companies in the UK, or in the world really, and we get the sales figures coming back from them periodically, and I think it was confirmed yesterday or the day before that we'd exceeded 5 million, because as far as I know, the first week of the Pi 2 being on sale, I think it was about 300,000 were sold in the first week. And that kind of blew us all away. We weren't expecting that much. We thought it might be 100 or something, you know. But yeah, and yeah, so we're kind of getting into the territory where we're sort of overtaking Clive Sinclair, and not quite overtaking Amstrad yet, but we might, if we're lucky, we might have him this year.
I mean, that's an amazing achievement to think how many Spectrums sold, and now everybody had one in the bedroom, and I think there's that almost as many pies out there now. It's amazing.
Yeah. As there were Spectrums back in the 80s.
Yeah, and that's amazing, isn't it? And especially considering what people are doing with it, it's not a business tool or anything like that. It's a thing for enthusiasts and for teaching and for learning.
The first year or so Raspberry Pi was on sale, we were mostly selling them to enthusiasts and hackers and people that were my age, basically. And then in 2013 and certainly in 2014 we saw a much bigger uptake in education. So yeah, so that's all just kind of grown on its own, and a lot of schools are getting Raspberry Pi labs now. We've started running a free teacher CPD course now called Pi Academy, which has just been happening today. In fact, it's a 2-day course, and teachers can apply to go on it for free. So if you just go to raspberrypi.org/Pi Academy, there's like an application form to go on it, and it's 2 days for free, and you get a free meal out of it. So if there's any teachers listening to this, get over there and apply. Yeah,
it's definitely well worth it, and just the enthusiasm that you get from and the resources that you get from you guys, that you can then pass that on to kids and get them interested in computing is fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, so the reason why I wanted to talk to you is about the new Raspberry Pi. So, what the Raspberry Pi 2 announced a couple of weeks ago, and as you say, now shipping. When did work on that start then?
Oh yeah, we kept it secret for ages. I think I actually don't know when the work started for it, because the engineers that work for Raspberry Pi Trading are quite secretive anyway. If you see what I mean. So no, I think it was underway probably sometime in the middle of last year. Because it takes a lot of work to get it from designing. First thing they do is actually design the system on the chip at Broadcom. So the actual Broadcom had to actually design that chip first before we could use it. And obviously Eben's still a Broadcom employee, and he I'm not sure whether he was one of the chip architects that designed it, but it goes through a very stringent simulation and testing process at Broadcom before the actual chip is manufactured. Once that's manufactured, then we can start taking it and designing a new upgraded version of the PCB for it. And because the actual SoC had a larger footprint than the original Pi, we had to put the RAM on the bottom, because the old Pis had a POP package where you'd have the CPU and GPU, and on top of it would be the RAM. And we couldn't do that anymore because the SoC had got bigger. You see what I mean? So that's why if you look on the bottom of a Pi 2, you'll see that's where the RAM is now. They had to do a lot of very clever kind of routing in their electronics CAD package to make that work.
So what was the reason for actually bringing out a new Raspberry Pi?
Well, we kind of felt that the original Pi, what we wanted the Raspberry Pi to be was an actual kind of, an actual bedroom computer, and a productivity computer even. And we always felt that the Pi 1 never quite achieved that well enough. And you could use it, but you couldn't do everything you wanted to do on it. There were some things where, any application which was seriously CPU limited wouldn't run brilliantly on a Pi 1. Even though some 3D games would run really well on it, like Quake 3, for example, would run brilliantly on it, because that uses the GPU. GPU on a Pi is really powerful. It's got a lot of pixel pushing grunt, but the CPU is quite limiting. So we always wanted it to be like a general productivity computer as well, so that any kids that have it in their bedroom can do pretty much everything they want to do on it. And we always felt that the Pi 1 wasn't quite as good as we wanted it to be. So that was the main motivation.
Yeah.
To get to the stage where it could be that. And now we think we're quite confident that the Pi 2 is going to fulfill that role.
So what's the new components then in the Pi 2 that's going to deliver that?
So what we changed is it's, instead of a single core ARM, on ARM v6, it's a quad core ARM v7, and also has a gig of RAM. The GPU is pretty much, is slightly changed, but only a little bit more performance than the old Pi, the GPU. But the CPU really is like it on a lot of benchmarking tools, and on most applications that you use, general day-to-day applications you use on the Pi, it's about a 6 to 7 times increase in performance.
Wow. And I suppose, so that's where you get the extra sort of the desktop type performance then from?
Yeah. So, for example, I don't know if you've ever used a program called Wolfram language or Mathematica.
Yeah.
That used to take ages to load. That used to take a couple of minutes to load on the old Pi. And now it only takes about 20 seconds or something.
Right, so, yeah. It was things like sort of just general web browsing, it wasn't really the best device for, but so is that?
No, we did a lot of work. We did a lot of actual software plumbing to Epiphany, which is the browser that you get with LXDE, and we've actually made it really kind of efficient to work on the Pi 1. And it's usable, and it plays embedded video, and you can do a lot of web browsing on the Pi 1. But now on the Pi 2, with those optimizations already in place to make it really lean for the Pi 1, on Pi 2 it's lightning fast. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So that's what gives you that sort of all-in-one device. Then, basically, you can use a browser, you can do just about anything now. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And we wanted it to be that they wouldn't be limited in anything they wanted to do. So. Things like Pygame animations or something like that. Like if you were writing Python Pygame programs, they used to be a bit jerky and flickery on Pi 1, but on Pi 2 they're nice and smooth, and no jerking or flickering or tearing or anything like that. Yeah,
and I suppose for a lot of media enthusiasts that listen to this show, they're using it for XBMC type projects. It's good for that as well.
Yeah. There's we're actually in discussions about whether we're going to bring out a Pi 2 optimized version of XBMC. Well, it won't be us who brings it out. It'll be either Raspberry MC or OpenLX who bring it out.
Yeah.
There's currently a bit of a discussion about whether there will be a Pi 1 optimized version and a Pi 2 optimized version. And what we want to avoid is a situation where someone downloads the wrong image. And so we're trying to make it so both kernel images will work in the same download. You see what I mean? But I'm not sure whether that's actually going to pan out. It might be that you will have to go onto our downloads page, and then you'll see a tab for Pi 1 and a tab for Pi 2, sort of thing.
Yeah,
and you'll get one that's which will keep all the power users happy anyway.
Yeah, but so with the Pi 2, then if you stick, I think OpenELEC has been optimized, hasn't it, for anyway? So you should be able to put that on and get a much better performance experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good on the Pi 1 anyway, because most of the work was being offloaded to the GPU. So even though the CPU on a Pi 1 wasn't that powerful, most of the work that OpenELEC is doing is using the GPU. For example, like any H.264 encoded movie file will just be decoded by the GPU, and all that work's being offloaded. So yeah, it will be faster in certain aspects, like loading up and
browsing data.
Yeah, browsing data, stuff like that. But when you're actually playing back a movie file and it's doing the the H.264 high profile decode, it probably might not really notice a difference, because the GPU is essentially the same GPU that's on the Pi 1.
Yeah, and we've had a couple of listeners talk about it. I think one of the listeners said that they were using the Pi 2 for doing TV streaming. So it was a TV streaming server. So they had a USB tuner and an IP-based tuner, and they were transmitting multiple HD streams out to other XBMC clients on the network.
That's cool. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and that extra grunt will be coming handy for stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly. Because obviously, it'll be computationally encoded by the CPU.
So if you're building projects with the original Raspberry Pi and you're using some of the I/O pins, is the new one pin for pin compatible, or do you have to have some kind of converter?
No, they're pin for pin compatible. So we originally had the 26 pins on the original Model A and Model B, and then we brought out a 40 pin one for the B plus and the A plus, and now we've got this. We've kept that 40 pin layout from the B plus to the Pi 2B. So you should be able to just use everything. There is a couple of teething problems we've had with libraries that weren't updated quickly enough, and that was partly our fault. Usually when we bring out new hardware, we like to try and get hardware like a pre-release like Pi 2 into the hands of all the community people who contribute very well used libraries. And there's a really popular one called Python rpi.gpio, and that allows you to, in Python, just poke the GPIO pins and you configure them as inputs and outputs and stuff like that. It's widely used in nearly all of our resources that you find on the website. And as a complete oversight, we actually forgot to send the guy who's the developer of that library a Pi 2 prior to launch, and I think he's only managed to get it tested and gone through all his unit tests yesterday. So hopefully soon there'll be a new SD card image for the Pi 2, which will have all these updates in it.
Right.
It's because it was just the weeks leading up to the release of Pi 2 was really hectic and mental, and it was just a genuine oversight. A guy called Ben Croston, he's a really lovely bloke actually, and he actually brews beer with the Raspberry Pi. He's actually got this great brewery. You go to or search Google for Fuzzy Duck Brewery, and he's got these massive vats, and the temperature is all measured and the cooling jackets are all controlled by a Raspberry Pi, and he wrote that library for his brewery.
Oh, brilliant.
Just completely organically. It's all kind of spread, and the entire educational community is now using it. So we really sort of face palmed ourselves when we realized that we'd forgot to send him a Pi 2 prior to the launch, and when we realized that the SD card image would be going out the door on the first day without that library working. It was a bit of a kind of whoops moment.
Yeah.
But as time goes on, obviously these things all get fixed, and the next image that goes out should be all perfect.
Yeah, and I guess you guys have got a lot of credit from the community, so it's I suspect not too people will be upset with you.
Well, yeah.
You got a lot of love from the community.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that was mentioned at the announcement of the Raspberry Pi 2 that got a huge amount of press, I'm not sure how surprised you were about that, is the Windows 10 link. Now,
yeah.
So, I mean, the story was Raspberry Pi 2, Windows 10 runs on it, and that got a lot of press, and people like us were really interested in that. So set the story straight. Does this mean that I'll be able to get my Raspberry Pi 2 and get my Windows 10 technical preview ISO and install it on the Pi?
No. Yeah, this is one of the things that we're concerned about, because we've put a lot of work into the Raspbian distro, and that's kind of like our educational Raspberry Pi distribution of choice. And a lot of all the programming tools that we use and all our resources are based around the Raspbian OS. And what we're worried about is when you install your Raspberry Pi, they'll see this list of OSs that they don't know, and then they'll go, oh, Windows, click, and just install that. And then what they'll end up with is the actual Windows 10 that's going to be available for the Raspberry Pi will not have the desktop environment that most people are expecting. And it's going to be Windows for IoT devices only. And what it will be an embedded OS. And if you wanted to, it'll be mainly for developers, people who want to use the Raspberry Pi in like a consumer way to, browse the web or watch videos on it, won't want to use this. Because the way you'll use it is you'll connect your Pi to the network. It'll have Windows 10 IoT installed on it, and you'll load Visual Studio on your Windows PC, do some development, and you'll configure Visual Studio to deploy to the Raspberry Pi and run the code remotely. So you'll be doing things like just interfacing with temperature sensors and pressure sensors and stuff like that with it. That's the kind of the thing that you'll be doing with that.
Right, Jason's just going to join our call. He's our regular co-host, so I'll come back to that, what you were saying then in a sec. I'll just add him in.
Okay.
When he answers his Skype.
Hello.
Hi, Jason.
Apologies for the lateness.
Okay, good. It's all right. We're already chatting Raspberry Pi 2 with Dave, and so we'll continue on, and we'll do our news bit when we finish the Raspberry Pi stuff.
Yeah, sure.
But feel free to jump in as we're going. We were just talking about Raspberry Pi, Windows 10 on the Raspberry Pi, and how it's not going to be the desktop, which Dave just explained very, very well. But the Internet of Things then. So what you're talking about really for Windows 10 then is this is going to be for developers and tinkerers and experimenters and enthusiasts to do different things with this board, but based from Visual Studio.
Yeah, you'll be developing in Visual Studio for it, and it kind of makes the Pi more like an Arduino in the way that it's like a slave device to a Windows PC, as opposed to a computer in its own right, which is what the other operating systems like Raspbian give you. That you can, we've done a lot of work recently on the actual desktop environment for Raspbian and made it look a lot nicer, and done there's a lot of work. We've got a guy who's a guy called Simon, who is one of our engineers. He's really, really, really well up on all these like UI stuff, and he's spent a lot of time working on it. And it's really improved. If you haven't seen the new desktop, go and download the latest image now and have a look on Raspbian.
Yeah, I'll try that. So, but then could I? Because Microsoft talk about universal apps now, which is their big thing. They're pushing for phone and for the desktop and tablets and everything else. Could I write like you said, a temperature monitor in Visual Studio and send that down to Raspberry Pi 2, and that's then connected via I/O pins to a thermistor and that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing you could do. I mean, there's probably a lot more that you can do with it. I mean, I'm pretty sure they might make it so that you can output HDMI onto something like, you could make it display adverts or something like that if you wanted to have a HD TV in the shop window or something like that. I'm sure they probably will have some kind of visual output there, but the actual the Raspberry Pi won't act like a separate computer and accept your input. You'll have to do all the input via Visual Studio running on an x86 PC.
Yeah, but I was thinking when I saw the thing it could be used for IoT projects, is you could have it as a kind of media player maybe that, like you said, output to the screen and from a DLNA server or whatever.
Yeah, I'm sure there will. I actually don't know the details of how. I mean, it's not going to be out for a few months yet, the IoT distribution for Raspberry Pi and Windows 10. In the next few months, we'll obviously, we'll shout about it on social media when we know more. But yeah, I'm sure there's going to be things like that will, be really interesting things. Like you could do something like put a Raspberry Pi inside a set of traffic lights to monitor the traffic flow or something like that using, radar sensors or motion sensors or something like that. And then have that Raspberry Pi uploading that data to some other central server, which is trying to monitor the level of traffic in that area of the town or something like that. You know, so the whole like IoT systems within systems kind of thing kicks in then when you can actually, you know, use it for that kind of.
And I suppose the big advantage for that is that you're using the sort of the tools like Visual Studio, where developers are already working on big data projects and things like that. So it's familiar tools. Yeah,
I mean, there's you know, we've got one guy in our community who actually works for. His job is to develop new disruptive IoT technology. His name's David Whale, and he's a really great guy. Does a lot of community work, and he's really like chomping at the bit to get hold of that sort of thing to see what can be done.
Yeah, I can imagine a lot of niche but interesting projects with that, and with it being Visual Studio based, so that you could write, you know, a Windows Phone version and a desktop version, and then have a IoT version, all with sort of similar code sets as a universal app.
Yeah. I'm sure it will be surprising to us what will end up coming out of that. The only thing that for us as Raspberry Pi Foundation, we're obviously interested in education, and I'm not sure where Windows 10 is going to fit into that picture. And I don't know, you know, I'm not sure if IoT development is going to be something that will fit into schools in the way that the current system does. It may do, I'm not sure yet. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I suppose it's more for commercial maybe, or higher scaled up projects, like I said, big data and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But were you surprised then by the reaction that got from the press of when you announced the Windows 10 support?
I guess so. I mean, yeah. I mean, what's actually happened there is a lot of people have run away thinking they know what they're talking. You know, they think they know that it's going to be Windows 10 desktop, and I think Microsoft may find themselves in a situation where they have to announce that. Oh, actually, by the way, everybody, it's not going to have the desktop. It's just going to be this IoT thing, and all the people are going to go and, you know, massive groan. Happen sort of thing. I'm not sure what will happen there. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
In theory, I guess one use could be as like a mobile gaming device. You know, with the games being the modern apps. Presumably, there's no reason why it couldn't run that kind of application.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've already seen a lot of people using the Pi 2 as an emulation device. And it can emulate things like PS1 games pretty well. And yeah, I'm quite sure that someone will compile MAME for Windows IoT and just, you know, just blaze a trail doing that kind of thing. So.
I also wonder, we haven't really seen yet how they actually managed to, or how they're planning on delivering the Xbox One remote play. But again, you could potentially build a device if it is through a modern app. Again, I guess there's a potential you could do that through, you know, have that running as an Xbox One streaming device.
Yeah, you could do actually. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of potential. And I guess I can see why Microsoft wanted to get on board with the Raspberry Pi 2, just to get in that into that world that they've sort of been shut out up to now.
Yeah, well, they're not completely shut out from that. They do have this thing called .NET Gadgeteer, which is kind of a very similar kind of you know, an attempt to create a learning environment for schools and stuff, but it is a bit more expensive than the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, I saw some of those actually last week when I was at Microsoft, and yeah, but and there's the Galileo board, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, that's an Intel product.
Yeah, which they kind of support. But I think this is great. I think the best thing about this, though, I suppose, is that you've run the whole range from really, you know, low-level stuff like Internet of Things, right the way to Scratch programs, to the desktop, to the browser, for a tiny little price and a little low-cost device.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it wouldn't have happened without the kind of support from the community that we've got. That's all kind of organically grown up around us, and a lot of little cottage industries have sprung up, making things, accessories, and add-on boards to the Raspberry Pi, and that's all happened organically as well. You know, and it's I think what most people, they come to it and they see that it's a charity, it's a foundation. We're not trying to make money. That sort of inspires people, I think, and they think, yeah, I'm going to get behind this one. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the community is fantastic. I've been to some of the Raspberry Jams and the other events, and we had a user group a couple of years ago, and we had Raspberry Pi stuff there. It just draws people in. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we said, didn't we, when the original Raspberry Pi launched, it's such a great device to try and build that momentum again in schools in terms of teaching IT and programming. As someone that works in IT, it's been frustrating to have my kids' view of computing being how to create a Word document and how to create an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, they can be stuck on that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, don't worry, I'll get on my soapbox as well. But so it's really nice to see this kind of device being available really cheaply for schools, and like you say, from a not-for-profit organisation that it's good to hopefully see the British computing industry maybe gain a bit of momentum and a bit of growth again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the hope. That's the hope that we're going to put ourselves back onto the track where the undergraduates at Cambridge University aren't in decline for computer science. They're actually growing, and the last few years it does look like it's working. So we have seen some increase at the undergraduate level of computer science at Cambridge University.
Yeah, and I know kind of more programming level education is going back into the curriculum, which is that's really good and positive to see. Yeah, definitely. And but presumably the Raspberry Pi devices could, maybe with Windows 10 or maybe more pure Linux distributions could run things like your supermarket scanners, your shop devices, or cinema telemachines. Yes,
you can do all that kind of stuff with it. I don't know if you know that we made something called a compute module, which is actually a Raspberry Pi on a SODIMM, and that's designed for that particular purpose. If you want to embed the computation of a Raspberry Pi into your own custom hardware, like if you were making a vending machine or something, that's what that's for. And it's basically a literally tiny thing like that. And you would craft your own. You just put whatever your PCB is, just put a SODIMM socket on it, and then you can just bring the rails out to whatever you want to do. And then the Raspberry Pi compute module just slots in and clicks in, and that's it. And then it's nice and thin and slimline, and you can just tuck it away inside whatever you're making. So yeah, just pop over to our you go raspberrypi.org/products. One of them is a compute module, and you can get a dev board with it as well, which allows you to prototype what you're going to make. And that will give you all things like the HDMI output ports and how to connect the camera modules to it, and a big array of pins at the top where you can just jump things across to test things out.
Hopefully we can see an end to cinema ticket dispensing machines with blue screens of death on them and Windows error dialog boxes.
I did hear a rumor that we might be getting the advert screens on the tube. I'm not sure whether if TfL are going to do that, because all those PCs that when you're on the tube and you're going up the escalators, all those PCs, they're actually all x86 PCs running, Windows whatever version XP.
Yeah.
And I did hear a rumor a while ago they wanted to replace those all with Pis because they consume a lot less power. A Pi uses about 3.5 watts of power, and they produce a lot less heat. And they wanted to replace them all with Pis because they've got the same kind of pixel pushing power, and you save a massive amount of electricity. So I'm not sure if that's actually happening. No, it's just a rumor that I overheard.
Yeah. No, but it would be good. I talk about the irony is, here is Windows 10 on the Raspberry Pi running on ARM, just as my lovely Lumia 2520 reaches the end of its life. I mean, not at the end of its useful life, but in terms of receiving future Windows updates, it's unlikely to happen. So
okay.
So then where do we go then to where should I be sending listeners then if they wanted to find out more about the Raspberry Pi 2 and look at this educational stuff and just the enthusiast stuff, like OpenELEC and that kind of thing?
Well, if you go to our website, there's like a toolbar at the top, and the resources are on the far right, and then you've got like the downloads page, you've got the blog. The blog's really good to read. If you go back through, there's a community tab, which gives you lots of other sites that are related to us that give other kind of Raspberry Pi. There's a young lad who's he's only about 16, and he called the Raspberry Pi guy, and he's got a great website which have got loads of tutorials and stuff. You just go on his website and like learn how to wire up some motors to your Raspberry Pi or something like that. And there's loads of great videos on there. You know, Raspberry Pi for Beginners, Geek Girl Diaries, Carrie Ann Philbin, my colleague, that's her YouTube series. The forums are great. We've got one of the most friendly forums that you'll have ever found on the internet. And you can just go on there, post anything, ask any question, and usually you'll get people replying. And if anyone replies from the foundation or from the trading company, you'll see that we're marked out with little icons, so you can see if it's a staff member replying to you and stuff like that. Excellent.
I've been on those forums myself. Yeah, like you said, they are very friendly, and I've found some good tips on how to get the Spectrum emulator working on the Raspberry Pi. So I was quite happy getting that working.
Great.
Well, great. We'll really appreciate you joining us today. It's fantastic to explain that, and we'll be following along all the developments. And like I said, we have many listeners that are using Raspberry Pi for servers or front ends and back ends and all sorts. So, yeah, we'll continue to follow along, and we'll get in touch with you again in the future, maybe when we've got some more IoT stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I mean, what I would encourage all your listeners to do is like to go out and maybe get involved at local events and stuff. We have these things called Raspberry Jams, which are happening all the time around the country, and it's people like your listeners who have, you know, technical expertise that, you know, you could be helping some schools that are struggling and stuff like that. And, you know, I'd like to encourage people as much as possible to go out there and get involved with the community and try and help people who are trying to use Raspberry Pis, because that's the way this is all we're gonna solve the problem of appliance computing at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally agree with that. Yeah, and we're probably going to do another user group event at some point, and we'll have some stuff there as well. So anyway, great. Really appreciate you joining us. Thanks to Rich for arranging it, and we'll speak to you again soon.
All right.
Go on.
No, thanks very much. Yeah, sorry I missed the start.
So what we'll do, I'll send you the link out. It should probably go out on Thursday at some point or Friday morning latest. So I'll send you the link when it's all live.
Yeah, all right. And you copy in Liz as well.
Yeah, sure, we'll do.
Our communications director.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that. It was really good fun. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
Cheers. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, that was good stuff. Now, Gary's just arrived, so we can add Gary in.
Ah, perfect timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry I missed that. I completely forgotten it was half term, and then obviously we Shrove Tuesday, so the kids are up later in pancakes and stuff. So it's just all a bit, because I don't get home till just after 7 now, so it's all a bit
hectic.
It's all a bit hectic. Yeah,
I forget half term. We normally record a bit later, don't we?
Yes, yeah. And when I sent my response yesterday, I'd completely forgotten that it was half term. So,
good evening.
And yeah, nothing to do with half term with me. It's just difficulties and electrical faults and things. So it was a bit all good fun.
No, I know what it was. I sent you the invite via the room.
Oh, that's it. Yes, you did. That's the problem.
You received it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you see, I would have up to the end of March to receive it, but beyond that, no.
Well, I can't send you a chat from this phone here.
No, because you're Windows 10.
I'm running Windows 10 on here. Yes.
Yeah. I have to say I'm very disappointed with that. It's a feature I actually use an awful lot. I know a lot of people don't, but Rooms is something because my dev team are all on Windows phones and everything like that. We've used Rooms an awful lot for shared information and shared calendars and things. So I hope there's something coming in Windows 10 which gives us the same sort of features.
I think the functionality works, doesn't it? I mean, basically, all it was a user-friendly interface into sharing a OneNote, sharing a pictures.
Yeah, it's all in one.
Sharing a calendar. Yeah, oh yes, it was definitely. I mean, it was so easy to implement. I mean, we use it. I used it to set up our shared calendar that me and my wife used to put all the family events on, and we used the shared OneNote for shopping lists and birthday ideas and for the kids and whatnot.
I mean, I can certainly see there's some things coming with Windows 10 which will make life easier. So, like the calendar will be easy to see your shared calendars on and things like that going forward. Because that was one of the things with the existing calendar. It was sometimes difficult to pick up the shared calendar bits. And I think what we've seen as the new calendar app, that will make life that easier. We've got Skype messaging built into the messaging app, so that sort of allows you to do that sort of private messaging side of things. So, but I still think it's a shame it's going away, because it was a really nice feature, and it was one of the unique features about Windows Phone.
Yeah, and like I say, I mean, we use it a lot, and I think I mean, this is an assumption on my part, but I'm guessing that you won't be able to pin any kind of, because I can pin the room to my start screen, so I can see when my wife's added calendar events or updated the OneNote. So yeah, I think it'll be a shame, but yeah, hopefully they'll think of something to replace it. But
I think what it needs is something that maybe works more cross-platform anyway for someone like me who's, my kids are on Windows Phone, my wife's on an iPhone. If there was,
and I can certainly see the Skype side of things working better for that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously this was the last vestige of MSN Messenger. It's going away, so I'm not surprised they had to get rid of the messaging part of it, but yeah, it's a shame. It's actually quite interesting, because I was actually selling someone on Windows Phone using that feature last week, so it's a shame to see it go away. But
yeah, it's certainly short notice. I mean, March 2015, you normally get a bit more notice than that, and particularly since it's surprising that it's been killed off quite so quickly, because let's face it, Windows 10 for phones isn't going to be ready till let's say June, July, August time. It's by the time the carriers have approved it, you'd think we'd get a year's grace.
Yeah, I wonder if someone's just realised that something's up for renewal or something on the Messenger service.
Yeah,
They want to fund it, and it's gone away. Because I can imagine the Messenger service aren't part of the Azure network. They're probably some other sort of service somewhere else. Probably back in the day when Microsoft actually used to rent cloud architecture. So it could be that there's something like that, and they've suddenly realised that. Because I mean, it's that part which is going away. So the rooms themselves on 8 and 8.1 will still be there, but you won't be able to message in them. So, I mean, it's a shame. I think I just hope on Windows 10 they find some other way of integrating with the new people app. Some maybe groups will be better or something like that. I just hope so. Something comes along to give us that similar sort of thing. And as you rightly say, Ian, I think it does need to be more cross-platform.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. On the positive side, I've also managed to get a bit of hands-on time with Windows Phone 10. Windows 10 for phones.
Get it right.
Yeah,
Windows 10 for phone, a small tablet. Get it right.
Yeah. I'll have to practice that one. Well, it wasn't available for my Lumia 930 yet. It was available for the Lumia 630. So I mentioned to my 10-year-old son who has one, would you like to be one of the first to see Windows 10? It was like, yeah, can I? So he, unbeknownst to him, became my guinea pig.
Because of the project that me and Gary working on with the media stuff for book potential for book, I wanted a Windows 10 device to the phone that could run Windows 10. So it was one of our listeners sent a link in the chat room on Twitter actually, and it was, I forget, it was now £55 for a 630 from PC World, from their outlet. Dixon's, Carphone Warehouse, PC World, outlet store, and eBay, and it was a brand new device, but the box has been opened, so I guess it's a return, maybe something like that. But it's but first thing I've got to say, my son's got, one of them's got 625, the other one's got 635, and this is the 630. But first I've got to say, what a great value phone this actually is.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, my son's got one.
They're really nice, aren't they?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's really lightweight. It's but it works
nice
really
screen.
well. His biggest frustration with it was, and this is kind of my fault, but it was one of the cheapest Windows phones to get for his first mobile phone. But is the fact it's only 512 megabytes, and quite often some of the games he wants to play aren't supported. But I mean, that's really the only gripe. I think that's one area where Windows Phone shouldn't dip down below the 1 gigabyte of RAM, but apart from that, I mean, it's a really great phone. It's responsive and it works really well. And ironically, just when I tried to get the Windows 10 for phones and small tablets, Gary, preview onto it, the first thing it did was prompt me to install the Denim update.
Right, yeah.
He'd been waiting for Cortana. He was so excited, so I installed that first, and he tried to use Cortana only to be told, "I'm sorry, you're not old enough."
Yeah, that's what my son found when we.
So he was very disappointed.
So I put Windows 10. It took best part of a couple of hours for it to get a few. I think it probably was a Denim update, and then there was an extra update, and then I got Windows 10 on it. But once you install, it actually seems to work pretty well. And I'm not sure about the battery life. I mean, I'm looking at this 630 now, and I've been using it on and off during the day. It's at 40% now, and I would probably expect a bit more. And looking at my son's phones, I think they're getting a lot better battery. So I suspect that Windows 10 is probably a bit heavier on the battery at the moment.
Well, that's one of the things they said it was going to be, didn't
Yeah,
they?
which you can understand.
Yeah.
But the main things I sort of really noticed was the Action Center. I think is the nice change. I've noticed when you get a new follower on Twitter or been retweeted, or the actual image is there now in the action bar at the top, which looks quite nice. And if it's something you can interact with, like a text message, you can actually sort of do it from the action bar, which looks quite nice. And the actual sort of Action Center with the drop down list of notifications seems a cleaner look, I guess. I guess that's the best way of describing it. It's separated with a nice sort of vertical line now, and it's got little drop down arrows so you can expand and see more of the message as well. So I think they've done quite a good job with that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And the settings is way better than before. I mean, the settings are essentially the same. If on some of them when you drill down to them, but the way it's organized is much better, and looks. It's one area where you can see the Windows 10 influence a lot, isn't it? When you go into that, you compare, and that it's very much like the desktop, especially when you do things like alter the background image. The fonts and the layouts and everything looks very much like the Windows 10 big boy equivalent.
Yes, it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, interesting enough, the one thing that struck me initially after the phone had rebooted with the Windows Phone 10, Windows 10 for phones installed, the first thing that struck me actually is just how similar it looked. It was until I kind of dug down into settings and as expanded the quick action buttons. It actually looks, very, very almost like the update hasn't worked. It does feel very familiar, which is really comforting, I think. I'm sure over time things will change as more functionality gets put into it. But yeah, the first thing that struck me was actually how little had changed.
And I noticed obviously Microsoft talked about the Pictures app, which is a lot different and has got that very much that new style look with the hamburger menu which sort of slides out at the side, very much like the new style apps on the desktop and on the tablet version. A nice little Photos app. Actually, it works quite well. And there was the file browser. I don't know if you saw that as well.
No, I didn't see that.
Now, I found this, and at first I wondered whether it was just because there is a sort of file browser app that you can get for Lumia, isn't there? But this is called File Explorer, and it is just Windows Explorer, but it's got that new style, the black and white with the hamburger menu and the slide out at the side. But I noticed it's got 2 locations. It's got recent and this device, and I guess that maybe we'll get that OneDrive. Do you remember this functionality? I think got removed at some point. Do you remember in the past you could, if you had OneDrive or SkyDrive at the time on 2 PCs, you could browse the file system of the other PC, even though you weren't connected, if you know what I mean.
Yes, yeah.
And I wonder whether there's some kind of functionality you'll get like this, or whether it'll say this device and it might say, my Lumia 1520, and it'll also say Surface Pro 3, and it'll have a way of sort of browsing those devices. I'm not sure that's what it's for, but it kind of looks like that's how it could work.
Yeah, well, that's certainly under Windows 10 for desktops. The OneDrive application does have a configuration for allowing my files to be browsed remotely, as you say, just like the original OneDrive application used to allow. So I think that functionality is coming back. Yeah.
So that looks quite good as well. And I'm trying to think what else did I notice? Yeah, you can change the background. It actually makes more sense how they've done the background now. So the background stays static with a picture background, and the tiles sort of scroll around on it with a translucent effect, which I think it kind of makes more sense than the way it worked previously.
All those developers went out of their way to make see-through tiles would be cursing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, so I think those were the main things that I noticed. Really, most of the apps are all the same. Really, the current, the same apps. I guess they'll just get swapped out over time. So we'll see new versions in. But I do like the look and feel of it. I must say, like you said, Jason, it's very familiar. It's an incremental update. I mean, it's kind of a 0.1 or 0.1.1 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was disappointed that the mail application was exactly the same and the calendar application was exactly the same. But it kind of would have been nice to see those kind of changes. But I guess we'll just have to wait for future builds as that stuff starts to filter down. Oh,
I should say as well, the keyboard's been changed as well. That's actually quite nice. It's got the little joysticky thing where you can scroll up and down, left and right, which is quite nice.
Your video of that did amuse me when you were missing it completely.
Yes, it wasn't working.
Yeah, I'm interested to see that because that's one of my wife's biggest complaints when her phone updated and they've changed. It used to be that when you tapped and held, you got the pointer appeared above your fingernail, and then you could drag it around. And she's finding the new way of doing it where you have to tap and then grab the little handle to move it. Quite frustrating.
Yeah, and the other thing is you've got the microphone button, so it seems wherever you've got keyboard entry, you can dictate to it now, which worked quite well on the 60. It was a little bit, there was a few errors. I think you can see it on the video where it didn't get it right every time, but it's not far off.
That was actually pretty impressive for a low processor machine. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I wasn't, and especially during the demos, because I was kind of holding it so the camera could see it, so I wasn't even, up close with it. It was sort of a few feet away. So.
Yeah. So addressing the elephant in the room, given all the teasing of when Windows 10 for phones and small tablets was being teased about, it's almost ready, it could be any day now. Do you think Microsoft were wrong not to communicate earlier the devices it was going to be available on?
Go on, Kelly.
Silence.
I think it's a very difficult question to actually answer because we don't really know what happened in the background. I mean, they never announced anything. So other than the fact that it wasn't going to be on certain tablets, it was only going to be available on certain hardware to start with. There was a false rumor came out, which was basically every phone it's not on was being listed as being.
Yeah, that was quite funny.
So that was obviously the list of phones it wasn't going to be on. But you never know. I mean, this position stitching thing, which is the thing which is causing the problems, that maybe they thought that was actually going to be ready in time, and it wasn't. So they may have not known that until maybe a couple of days beforehand. Then do you communicate out at that point? I mean, yes, possibly if they'd communicated a couple of days beforehand, people wouldn't have been so stressed about it. But even then, they probably got flack at that point. So I think any time anybody's disappointed it's not on their device, it's always going to be a problem.
It's interesting you saying that, Gary, because that was exactly my assumption, that they were hoping that they were going to get this partition stitching ready in time, and maybe even that's why it was delayed till quite late into February, like mid-February by the time it was released. So were they hoping to overcome that last couple of issues maybe and actually get a build out that was on more phones? So I was inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt as well.
I think so. But I think there's some things which have really annoyed people, is the fact that they've demoed on devices which they're not on the release thing, and that does sort of leave a bad taste in some people's mouths. But I can understand that, because with the way this partition station works and that you can see that there's a case that there may be more space available on certain phones than others, depending on the ROM image. I mean, are the country variant phones may have less things in than the operator based ones? There's a whole lots of stuff which might cause problems with that sort of partitioning.
And also, there you go, you've mentioned the other issue, which is I guess unsurprisingly, given the things that you've mentioned in the past, Gary, but the fact that Microsoft have allowed some carriers to block you accessing the Windows 10 for phones preview.
Yes, unfortunately.
That's crazy, doesn't it?
It does seem crazy, and it is crazy.
It's anti users, isn't it? It's punishing your customers.
Yes, yeah, and it'd be interesting to see if that actually could hold up in the European Court. but I
Yeah.
think someone would have to challenge it. But I mean, it's there is. I mean, there has been previous cases where the operators have prevailed over phone manufacturers on this thing, because there is this big risk that you could basically take the network down if you mess around with radio stack and stuff like that. Now, my understanding is the 10 preview actually does include for some firmware changes. So it does include some changes to radio stack and things like that, and Bluetooth particularly. So you can see that operators could say, no way, you're not doing that. But I'm surprised they've actually managed to get away with any operators allowing them to do it. So.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well, why I personally wasn't too upset about it is, and it's what we said the other week, is if they'd announced on Thursday that you could put it on the 1520, I wouldn't have put it on the 1520 anyway, because it's not ready yet, and that is a device that I totally rely on. My other tablets and things like that, they're nice to have and nice toys, but they're not going to cause me potential issues at work or family stuff. So yeah, so I was quite happy to spend the £55 on a test device.
The other thing is it's made a market for those phones now. So those phones have actually gone up in value since those announcements have been made. So some people out there would be quite pleased about that.
I bet someone at PC World's going, what's going on here?
So rush of sales on those.
Yeah. I'm quite happy now to wait. It's pretty stable. I'm not complaining about on this 630, but I think the battery life is an issue, and I'm quite happy to wait till close to the time. I might even wait till the release version. And now I've got a device to test on.
Now, I actually suspect it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, because if you remember, the first technical preview for Windows 10 was actually rock solid, wasn't it? And then was it the December one where things went downhill a bit?
Yeah, I mean, that line I made up about you feeling like a skinned 8.1. It basically had the innards of 8.1 on it. So it was fairly stable. And I think when they actually start putting new features in, you are always risking stability.
Yeah, it's funny. I think a phone is just that more critical of a machine. I mean, it's the same with like your Surface Pro 3, Jason, that you're using for your business. You're more cautious about that than you would be on your Lumia tablet.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And interesting enough, as Gary says, some of the builds do regress, and we used to comment on the Windows 7 betas and even the Windows 8 betas about how stable they were. But I think there's so many fundamental changes coming through this time that it is. I'm definitely being more cautious than usual.
Yeah, and I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed in Microsoft's quality control at the moment. I think if you look at the updates which have been going out and a number of those which have been causing problems, I think this shift to the way they're handling testing is great. I think it's great for producing stuff really quickly, but there's always a risk of getting things out the door too quickly. And I think that's happened a bit recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We were having a similar conversation with them in relation to SQL Server. SQL's always been a really robust product. They can't afford to be anything else. But with SQL 2012 and SQL 2014, there has been some real quality issues. And I know it's not the topic of this show, but it does highlight that Microsoft does seem to have, along with any change in development cycle, developing software isn't easy. So when you try and do it quicker, there are going to be issues that creep in. So hopefully they can address those.
Yeah, and they are morphing to a completely different testing structure. So that takes time to get that right. The problem is with Microsoft, it's just magnified. If I develop something and send it out, it may affect 1,000 people. If Microsoft send it out, it's 20 billion people. It's just the effect level is just much higher. So
yes.
Well, I mean, so far so good, Tony. You can check out my video and hope get new builds and get to play with it a bit more and. Hopefully we'll get a new build for the tablets as well soon, so we can get to play. I'd like to try the 7-inch tablet version. That's the one part of it we really don't know much about.
Yes, yeah, and I was always also wondering, with obviously Windows 10 being developed in a much more high profile way and with many more public testers at a much earlier stage. But it'll be interesting kind of where with integrating all that feedback and trying to make, keep the majority of people happy, where that line's going to get drawn in terms of saying, right, at this point we're now feature complete, nothing's going to change, it's going to be fit and finish stuff.
Yeah, I suppose I'll have to draw the line at some point, but then
yes,
whether new features that don't make the cutoff will get added later, maybe now with this new model.
Yes, yeah, but at some point they're going to have to start aiming for quality over pleasing people and trying to fit everything but the kitchen sink in.
Yeah, you're right. Now, I suppose that's really all we've got time for this week. We had a good show this week. So thanks to Dave from Raspberry Pi Foundation for joining us. We found a little bit more about the Internet of Things version of Windows 10. So it sounds like it's going to be exciting stuff when you get that.
I'm looking forward to listening to that.
Yeah, I think you'll like it, Jason, because from what he was saying is it's not the desktop version, which is what we said, but we had to ask. But it is for Visual Studio and using like an Arduino. So a lot of interesting things. So yeah, you'll enjoy listening to that.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah. Right, so next week we should have another guest. So Edbot might be joining us next week. Hopefully we can get the schedule sorted out so he can join us next week. Plenty more stuff to talk about, Windows 10 stuff. I should also mention I posted a couple of videos. One of the Iconia 8 tablet, Android tablet running the Intel chip. It's a while since we've used Android on a tablet. Actually, I've got to say I prefer Windows 8 and Windows 10 on it now. And I also there's a couple of Microsoft Band app updates. I actually saw someone else wearing a Microsoft Band last week as well.
Well, you were at a Microsoft event.
I was, yes.
That's kind of cheating. I was going to say, what, were you stood in front of a mirror?
No, I saw one in the wild, but like you said, it wasn't a Microsoft employee at a Microsoft event.
Yeah.
Actually, there were more than one there, but
yeah, and I think we got a good event last week. So thanks to Microsoft that organised the MVP a day. That was very entertaining stuff. Some amazing stuff that they have there at Microsoft Research,
which we can't talk about, but it was amazing.
Yeah. Right. So we better wrap up then. So Gary, where can we find your stuff?
You find me on Twitter at Gary with 2 R's WMA and at fascinatingtech.com. And we're, as I keep saying, we're getting really ready for the next issue. Some really interesting stuff coming along the next issue. So looking forward to it. And
Jason, we actually sold your SQL virtual machine config to a few MVPs last week. So you better get that right up because there's a lot of interesting MVPs, SQL MVPs, wants to know how you've done it.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I'll get to work on that.
So where can we follow you, Jason?
You can follow me on Twitter at DatabaseJace.
Excellent. Great stuff. Well, it was a really good show. I really enjoyed that. And any listeners got any good stories about what they're using the Raspberry Pi 2 for, they can let us know and we can pass them on to Dave and get involved with the community. But we'll be back next week, 8 o'clock UK time in our chat room, and we'll be on the podcast, YouTube and everywhere else.
Great stuff.
See you next week.
Take care.
Yeah, cheerio. Bye-bye.